Across the Métis Nation homeland from Ontario to British Columbia, there is a clear vision: to build a proud, self-governing, sustainable nation in recognition of inherent rights for Métis people. In keeping this vision in focus, the Métis National Council and Métis Nation British Columbia hosted a roundtable discussion with industry to explore opportunities to forge long-term partnerships integral to a Métis economic development strategy.
What industry provides are opportunities.
The roundtable and panel discussions held in Vancouver was yet another in a series of similar meetings with industry that were held in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. It was a chance to talk about partnerships, procurement opportunities, Métis rights, and the need to educate Canadians about Aboriginal history, the duty to consult and accommodate, job creation, training, and access to working capital in British Columbia for Métis to grow their businesses. MNBC President Bruce Dumont says his government is working hard to gain the respect of industry, and by securing their trust, they'll be able to forge important partnerships to create jobs and opportunities for Métis workers and businesses.
And we've gained a lot of support with the industry sectors, major corporations, impact benefit agreements, equity partnerships, limited partnerships and MOUs, joint ventures. That's really important. That's our focus in British Columbia.
Colleen Hodgson with MNBC says industrial partnerships are critical to the future of the Métis Nation in BC.
The resource development that's happening in British Columbia right now is changing the landscape of not only the province, but engagement with Métis people. So it's very important that we know them well, they know us well, and that we create really strong relationships.
Sydney Pelletier from Terrace, BC knows firsthand how difficult it can be to grow a business.
It's trying to interest larger business proponents like the oil and gas to use my services. And because we're such a small company, and we're also an Aboriginal company, they somehow don't consider me to be really able and willing or able to do what I propose or what I have doing or what I have been doing for almost 40 years now.
Yes, I would say that industry in general is receptive to incorporating Métis in their projects, but it varies from different parts of the country.
Stephen Crocker with William Scotsman of Canada maintains that governments can help the Métis cause by adopting policies to ensure industry include Métis in their plans.
There needs at the federal level to be a Métis policy. And then all of the provinces will then fall into line and have a similar policy. In some provinces, they don't. So I think the policy statement is probably of prime importance coming from the federal government.
In recent years, the higher courts have ruled that Métis are a rights-bearing Aboriginal people, and that industry and government have a duty to consult and accommodate them on projects that could have a positive or negative impact. Despite this, Métis continues to be considered an afterthought in British Columbia.
And so it really behooves us all as Métis governments to once again, I think, go back to basics in terms of doing our homework, our traditional knowledge and land use studies. And that's where I think we're going to have to spend more of our time and effort and resources insofar as making those historical connections, because we can't expect government to do that.
Chris Gall has been studying historic Métis land use and Métis economic history in British Columbia, and his early findings could prove to be invaluable to the Métis Nation.
My master's degree is actually on fur trade history throughout British Columbia, and so I spent a lot of time looking at economic history. And as Bruce mentioned at the beginning, Métis were central to the economic development of this province and of Caledonia before it even was a province. Now, the first commercial fishery in British Columbia was established in 1827 on Cunningham Lake, which is near Fort St. James. And that was established by Jean-Baptiste Boucher, who was the first Métis recognized coming on this side of the Rockies, and by James Douglas, who would later become the father of British Columbia. And he himself married a Métis woman. So Métis have been critically tied to economic development, pre-effective control, if you will.
NCSG Crane has been among a handful of industry leaders in British Columbia to recognize Métis rights. And Andy Popko says they have an Aboriginal policy in place aimed at forging joint ventures, building lasting partnerships, and creating much-needed jobs for Aboriginal people.
So the advantages of working with the Métis with a joint venture is it's threefold. One, we're looking for employees. The average age of a crane operator is actually 54 years old. So we're looking for a workforce that we can train to take over for those who are aging and not going to be working anymore. So with the Manitoba, with the Métis Nation of British Columbia, what we're hoping for is that they can identify people for us to look at and train to become crane operators. Two, there's a revenue benefit for profit sharing as well as from the jobs that we get. Three, they can own equipment with us. So if we get long-term contracts, there'll be opportunities then for them to own equipment, which will then be a better economic advantage for them.
Our main goal is connecting an Aboriginal business with non-Aboriginal business.
Jarrett Lehman is with the Canadian Council for Aboriginal Business. CCAB's mission is to foster sustainable relationships between First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people and Canadian business. CCAB has 3 national programs, including the Aboriginal Business Mentorship Program, the Certified Aboriginal Businesses Program, and Progressive Aboriginal Relations Program, known as PAR.
A Métis company could participate in this program, and this program will help them build an Aboriginal relations strategy to continue to work within the Aboriginal community as a whole, inclusive of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. We also have a mentorship program, which would help Aboriginal entrepreneurs and business leaders connect with other leaders and help in areas where they could use mentorship.
For Métis to grow their businesses, the programs being offered by CCAB are seen as a valuable resource. However, Métis will also need access to working capital, and it'll be important as a Métis economic development strategy to continue to host regular roundtable discussions with industry leaders to keep the lines of communication open and strong. Positive inroads are starting to be made across the Métis Nation homeland with industry and government. The way forward toward a Métis economic development strategy is becoming clear, and the future is looking bright for the Métis Nation.